Well, we come to the final unit of the online course of Genesis 12 to 36, the accounts of the biblical patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Here in chapter 35, we are presented with the final, what I call the covenant chapter in the life of Jacob, named Israel, as he encounters God for a second time at the city which would be renamed Bethel or El Bethel at the end of this story. Going back from our last session, we looked at chapter 32 and the preparation to meet Isaac, and at chapter 32 ending with his wrestling with the messenger of God that ends up in his limping the rest of his life, but also giving background to the Israelite sacrificial system and provision for the priesthood in the sacrificial acts relative to the system of Israel dealing with her sins and sanctification before God. Then that incident is followed by the journey down to Shechem, basically which is in the center of the country, north-south speaking. Shechem is the midway point. The Samaritans called it the center of the earth. For the Samaritan religion, the area around Shechem, particularly Mount Gerizim, which is on the south side. Shechem is set in a valley between Mounts Ebal on the north and Gerizim on the south. And for the Samaritan sect, the mountain of Gerizim was considered the center of the world. If you want to know where the Ark of the Covenant is, there was a recent article on one of the news websites about a new attempt to establish the location of the Ark of the Covenant down in the Ethiopian region. But in the Samaritan sect, the belief is that the Ark of the Covenant is buried within Mount Gerizim. Mount Gerizim is also where Abraham nearly sacrificed Isaac. So there's a whole Mount Gerizim theology in the Samaritan sect. But this is where, again, Abraham first worshiped the Lord, built an altar at Shechem when he came into the land. Now we have a different kind of story at Shechem as the family encounters the sons of Hamor and a person named Shechem, and it leads to the raping of one of the daughters of Jacob named Dinah. So the family encounters difficulty there. There's retribution that happens, and questions arise out of chapter 33 and into chapter 34 about Jacob's leadership. So now in chapter 35, God reveals himself to Jacob, and Jacob is instructed by God to return to that location where he first met with God before he departed from the promised land of his ancestors. And Padan Aram of northern Mesopotamia, he's journeyed now south into the promised land, will return to the place where he first encountered God before he left, escaping the wrath of his brother Esau. Remember, there he had encountered God, the angels descending via the stairwell from heaven, and Jacob is encouraged by God on his journey that the Lord will be with him on his journey to and from the land of their forefathers. Now, having met with God's emissaries at Mahanaim and Peniel in chapter 32, understanding the seriousness of his encounter with God that would follow, he now instructs his family as they're approaching Bethel to rid themselves of those foreign God elements, all the elements of idolatry, from the icons, the iconography or idols were used representing the various deities, and also other implements that might be associated with idolatrous worship. Purity is demanded before he could encounter God in his fullness. And they're also instructed to put on new garments, symbolizing their changed lives as they're about to now take a new step in the journey of the covenant relationship between God and his people, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There, of course, the Lord reiterates the covenant promises. And he'll also have a changed name, Jacob to Israel. God's name is then rehearsed, as in Genesis chapter 17, to Abraham. In that scene led up to circumcision, the defining of the visible element of covenant family identity in circumcision. God revealed himself as El Shaddai, God all-powerful, almighty. Now he again reminds Jacob of his name, El Shaddai, as he did his grandfather Abraham. He also promises, reiterating the covenant, to bring forth great nations. And finally, the gift of the land. So those three elements, God in his relationship to his new covenant partner, gift of a great nation, the gift of the land, are reiterated to now Jacob. Hence, the covenant cycle of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is set forth, revealing again the continuation of God's plan to bless the nation through his covenant people as they move forward in history, unfolding God's plan through his people.